Recall! Yeah!
The Walk is a 2015 biopic directed by Robert Zemeckis. It tells the true story of a French street performer named Philippe Petit who becomes a tightrope walker and makes it his life's mission to string a high wire between the buildings of the World Trade Centers back in 1974 and go for a really death-defying walk. Now, a lot of movies, when they're based on a true story, they do take a lot of liberties and use creative license to enhance the story and throw in a few things here and there that never actually happened. This movie was frighteningly accurate. There's a documentary called Man on Wire, which was about the same subject, and when you watch that, you come to realize exactly how much of this movie was true. And I've got to say, it is such an extraordinary movie. It is a masterpiece of cinema. For starters, the performances are great. Joseph Gordon-Levitt as the main character, Philippe Petit, was fantastic. I got to admit, when I first started hearing him with this French accent, I kind of thought, it doesn't sound very convincing, but when you actually hear the real Philippe talk, it was very much like that. He did have the same kind of strange accent, so he nailed it. And not only that, Joseph Gordon-Levitt actually trained to become a high wire artist. Like, he did some intensive training before the movie because he wanted it to be as believable as possible, and it looked real. He really embodied the character and became this person. All the supporting cast were great as well, but look, the true star of this movie is Robert Zemeckis and his masterful direction. I mean, this guy has done movies in the past like Forrest Gump, the Back to the Future trilogy. You know, he's an amazing director, but there's one thing about his work and his style is that he uses visual effects in such a way that really bring his stories to life. I mean, as far back as Who Framed Roger Rabbit, this guy has been kind of a pioneer of advanced special effects, and this movie was no different. I mean, there are scenes in this film that leave you white-knuckled with tension. All the scenes, you know, from the actual walk above the World Trade Centers are dizzying. Even on a small TV at home, like, it's mind-blowing, and I can only imagine how great this movie would have been to see at the cinemas. And there were some really masterful ways that they used visual effects to kind of tell you a story without using words. I mean, for instance, there was one shot where Philippe Petit as a child is learning to walk on a high wire, and so, you know, he has like 5 ropes strung across between some trees, and as it pans down to his feet, you just sort of slowly see wires or ropes dropping away until there's just one, and then it pans up and it's Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and it was all done absolutely seamlessly, and it was a brilliant way of showing, you know, through the passage of time that he learnt to master the rope. Not only that, you can tell that this movie was designed for 3D. I was lucky enough to get a copy of the 3D Blu-ray. Not that I've been able to watch it yet because I don't have a 3D TV, but I can only imagine how great it's going to look. And one day when I do get a 3D TV, this is probably going to be the first movie I check out because it's just going to really enhance, you know, the depth. When you're looking down from atop him walking on the wire, I mean, my God, you got to see this movie to believe it. It is so extraordinary. And not only that, but I love the themes in this movie. I mean, here you've got this guy who is going to stop at nothing to make his dream come true. This guy was so persistent, and he was kind of arrogant as well. You know, there was some times where you're not 100% sure if you actually like this guy, but you just know that this arrogance is coming from his determination to see his dream through and to, you know, it wasn't even for like fame or fortune or anything like that. It was just, he had this idea and he was focused and determined to do it. And it was really inspiring. So anyone out there who's got a dream that they want to bring to fruition, this is a movie you need to see. And not only that, one of the other things that I deeply loved about this movie was that it was a fitting tribute, or a love letter, if you will, to the World Trade Centers. You know, you could just tell, especially from the finale, the very final shot and words of dialogue, This movie was definitely a love letter to those buildings. And, there was a scene in the movie where they're talking about the fact that New Yorkers hated the look of the buildings, but after he walked across the wire between them, he gave them a soul and brought the buildings to life. And oh man, it was really sad stuff. It was stuff to make you go misty-eyed. So the only real thing I can sort of fault the movie on was that maybe the runtime at just over 2 hours, it did not really drag, but there were just these moments where you wanted to get to the climax of the movie, and it felt like it was sort of holding you back. I mean, there wasn't really a dull moment in the film, but I just thought maybe they could have trimmed it down a little bit. And I just kind of felt that the relationship between Philippe and the main female role in the movie, Annie, I kind of wasn't really sure if they were in a relationship, if they were together or not. It was a little bit confusing, and at the end you are given like a final resolution as to what is happening between the two characters, but I just kind of felt throughout it was a little bit confusing as to where they stood with each other. But at the end of the day, those are very minor criticisms. This was a movie that was exceptionally well done. It told a beautiful story of one man's determination and courage to make his dream come true, and it's the kind of movie that is going to make you want to actually research the real story behind it all. I mean, after this movie, I hit Wikipedia, I watched Man on Wire, I was really fascinated by everything that happened, and I love so much that this movie was a very accurate depiction of the actual story. So The Walk is a movie I would highly recommend watching, and I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. So thank you very much for watching this review. It was actually a request from a good friend of mine from a long time ago, and dude, I'm so sorry it's taken me this long to get this review out there finally, but there it is. There are my thoughts on The Walk. So if you guys have seen The Walk, let me know what you thought of it. Hopefully you liked it as much as I did. Drop me some comments either here or on Facebook. All my social media links are in the description below, because I like to talk about movies and I would love to talk about movies with you. See you next time.
Click subscribe to stay up to date with all the latest movie reviews. Skynet will be taking over any day now, so what have you got to lose? Nyah.